broken, like all Peter Parker felt as he looked down at the grave of his former girlfriend Gwen Stacy. It had been a horrible night on the Brooklyn Bridge. A big battle that had occurred with Spider-Man's greatest foe, the Green Goblin, had ended with the brutal and fatal death of Gwen Stacy. Peter blamed himself for her passing, but had also blamed the man who took her away from him. He'd become rage-filled and ended up accidentally killing the Goblin. That night had haunted Peter for weeks. Mary Jane Watson approached Peter sadly. She rested her hand on his shoulder and asked tentatively, "Are you okay, Pete?" Peter sighed and turned around to face the redhead and gave her a look of tiredness. He loved Mary Jane, but this wasn't the time for her to talk to him in this state. They'd broken up when MJ found out that Peter was Spider-Man, and this made Peter even more bitter. "I'm just glad. I miss her so much," Peter confessed. MJ sighed. She opened her arms and said tentatively, "Come here." The two of them embraced, Peter trying not to cry. Once they pulled away, Peter and MJ could see Harry Osborn approach them looking glum. Peter knew his best friend wasn't just there for Gwen, but for his father too. He didn't know what a monster Norman Osborn was. He didn't know that Peter was Spider-Man. Peter wished he could tell Harry everything. "Hey Harry, how are you doing?" Mary Jane asked as she approached Harry. Then Peter could see that MJ planted a kiss on Harry's cheek. For some reason, this filled Peter with a horrible internal rage. Was this jealousy? He thought to himself. "Hey, Pete, are you okay?" Harry asked with concern. Peter said nothing, but looked down. He really didn't want to talk to Harry. He had recently found out that he and MJ started going out a few weeks after the breakup. But eventually, he said to Harry, "I'm okay. I just need to be alone." With that, Peter marched past Harry and MJ. They watched with concern as my friend stormed off. "Would you be okay?" MJ asked with concern, and Harry sighed before saying, "He just needs some time to himself. Let's go." And with that, the couple walked away from Gwen's grave and out of the cemetery. Meanwhile, at Oscorp, an Oscorp scientist in a white lab coat carried a jar with a black substance inside through a long hallway until they reached two double doors before entering a laboratory. There stood Dr. Miles Warren, who had replaced Norman Osborn as head of Oscorp until Harry turned 18. The scientist gave Warren the jar, who then opened the lid of the jar and placed the black substance into a glass container. The substance crawled out and tried attaching itself to Warren, but the doctor closed the lid of the container before it could escape. "We found the stuff near a space shuttle that crashed," the scientist who brought the substance told the doctor firmly. Dr. Miles Warren smiled before congratulating the fellow scientist. "Good job. We'll be beginning tests on the substance soon," he informed. The scientist nodded. Yes, sir. We found out that it seems to attach itself to people as a type of host, he informed before walking off to do some more business. Miles Warren climbed back to the substance and stared at it intently before saying quietly, "You'll find out just what you are." Later that night, Peter sat in his apartment bedroom, thinking to himself. All of the events that have been occurring played out in his head. Gwen's death, him moving out, Harry and MJ dating, and especially the breakup between himself and MJ. Being Spider-Man has been nothing but a curse, he thought to himself. He looked over at the picture of him and Gwen, and a photo of himself and his Aunt May and his Uncle Ben before the night he'd been murdered. They all looked so happy in those photos. This made Peter's eyes well up with tears as he thought about all the lives he'd lost. Peter turned on the radio, and there were reports of a gang named the Radicals that had broken into Oscorp and stolen a black substance. Peter sighed and pulled out his Spider-Man costume and put it on before he leapt out of the window and swung into the night, heading towards the danger. Meanwhile, the Radicals ran out of the Oscorp building after shooting several scientists and grabbing the black substance in a jar before running off. They just reached their getaway car before Spider-Man dropped in front of them. Ah, jeez. Can we make this quick, guys? I'm really not in the mood tonight, he quipped. The thugs pulled out their weapons and one of them shouted, "Squash the bug!" before they all charged on the wall crawler. Spider-Man sighed and dodged all of the thugs' attacks before webbing them up and making quick work of them. Suddenly, Peter saw a thug running off with the black substance and ran after him. He shot a web and caught the man's leg with the sticky substance, but the thug dropped the jar in the process and it broke, causing the substance to slip unnoticed. This greatly annoyed Peter, and he lunged at the thug and took out all his anger on him. He grabbed the thug by the shirt and started to shout, "What do you need that substance for? Tell me!" he commanded. "Some mad bomber wanted it to get more powerful," the thug confessed. Peter sneered behind the mask and dropped the thug in disgust before webbing him up. Peter looked around, trying to find the black substance, but all he saw was the broken glass and the lid from the now broken jar. Frustrated, Peter swung off into the night, frustrated that he lost it. Unbeknownst that the substance had attached itself to Peter's foot, attracted to his ever-building rage. Peter swung through the streets of Manhattan until he landed on the roof of a tall building. "I lost it!" he shouted to himself angrily. "I need to find this mad bomber before he finds the..." Peter's sentence was cut off when he looked at his now blackened hands. Peter bent down and looked at the reflection of the building to see that his suit was now pitch black, with the spider emblem now much bigger, and now was a white colour. "What is this? Did the black substance morph over my suit?" Peter questioned. He decided to visit his friend Dr. Kirk Connors to find out what this stuff really was. Meanwhile, Harry and MJ sat on the sofa of the Osborn mansion, both drinking beer from 2 glasses. I'm worried about Peter, Mary Jane finally told her boyfriend. Harry grimaced and seemed to be in thought. Then he got out his phone and said tentatively, I'll try and call him. He hasn't spoken to us all day. MJ looked down and spoke softly. I don't think he took our breakup so well, especially after Gwen died. Maybe I was a coward for just dumping him during his time of need. But I didn't know what to do. For all our sakes, I didn't want to end up like Gwen. Harry took MJ's hand and started to comfort her. It's not your fault. You were both overwhelmed and still grieving. I lost my friend and my dad that night, all because of Spider-Man. If anything, it's his fault. MJ grimaced, knowing the truth about Spider-Man. But then she said, I love you. Peter loves you. We all lost something that night. She then kissed Harry, who slowly started to kiss her back, holding each other in their comfort. Peter swung towards the building where the laboratory was, and swung through the window where he saw Dr. Connors. Hey Doc, you got a snack? Peter asked as the doctor stared in surprise. Spider-Man, it's late. What are you doing here? Peter took out some scissors and snipped off a bit of the black substance before placing it on the countertop and putting a glass cup over it. I need you to examine this stuff. Some thugs stole it from Oscorp and it seems to have attached to my suit, he told the doctor. Dr. Connors examined the substance and picked it up before walking over to the microscope. I'll test it, he told Peter, who just sat on the seat and waited. After Connors examined the substance even further, he confirmed what it was. This is symbiote from another planet, he informed. It needs to attach to a host in order for it to thrive. I suggest you take it off, Peter. The longer it stays on you, the harder it can be to unbond with it. Peter sighed with annoyance and thanked the doctor before swinging off into the night. Spider-Man landed on top of a building and tried to rip the substance off, but it just wouldn't be removed. How do I get this off? Peter groaned. Then he heard a voice from inside his head say, You don't want to remove me. I'm here to help you. Confused, Spider-Man looked both ways and surveyed his surroundings. Is that you, Mysterio? I'm really not in the mood for magic tricks right now, he remarked. Then the voice spoke again. I'm not an enemy. I'm a friend. The voice sounded whispery, ancient, and gravelly, almost snake-like. A friend, huh? Man, I really am going mad, Peter muttered before swinging off. Peter crawled through his apartment window. Then all of a sudden, the black suit dispersed and Peter found himself out of his suit. Huh, I'm going to enjoy this. I don't have to undress. I can just go straight to sleep, he remarked. Peter climbed into bed and pulled the duvet over him before closing his eyes and drifting off. That night, Peter had a horrible nightmare. He was running through a black void and the Green Goblin's cackle echoed all around him. Suddenly, Peter found himself back on the Brooklyn Bridge where he saw the Goblin holding Gwen by the neck over the bridge, and he cackled. Peter swung towards the pair, but Goblin dropped Gwen, and Peter once again missed, and Gwen fell into the black water. Peter fell in with her and found himself in the black void. Then he heard the voice say to him, "If you had me, you could have saved your girlfriend. You could have had everything." "What are you talking about?" Peter shouted. And suddenly the scene changed and Peter saw Harry and Mary Jane kissing and talking badly about him. "Your friends betrayed you when you needed them. They turned their backs on you," the voice said, in that snake-like voice. Then suddenly the black substance consumed Peter, who screamed out. He woke up and suddenly found himself upside down on a building. Peter saw his reflection and saw that he had his suit on, but it was pitch black, with silver eyes, with the tips being pointed. "What is this?" Peter whispered as he touched his face. He jumped from the building and swung through Manhattan before landing on top of the Empire State Building. He screamed with excitement as he felt this newfound strength. Peter leaped down from the building and landed on the pavement. The impact was so big, however, that the ground cracked beneath him. Peter saw a car and lifted it from the ground. It felt much lighter than usual, and Peter was amazed by his newfound strength, and gently placed the car down onto the ground. Peter sat on the pavement, contemplating his new situation and the dream he'd just had. "They're my friends. Harry and MJ wouldn't betray me like that," Peter muttered to himself. He stood up and swung off to visit Harry and talk to him about everything. When he got there, he noticed Harry and MJ sleeping in bed together. This suddenly filled him with horrible rage that he'd never felt before. "After everything I did for them," he thought to himself before swinging away. He needed to breathe, so the suit dispersed, and Peter walked to the cemetery. When he got there, Peter looked down at the grave of Gwen Stacy and gave a eulogy, expressing his guilt over not saving her and saying how much he missed her. He suddenly heard the Green Goblin laughing in his head, and Spider-Man screamed out at the sky and punched a tree next to him. He needed to let out his anger. Suddenly, he heard screams coming from Oscorp. He mentally commanded the suit to consume him before swinging off towards the scene. When Peter got there, he saw a man armed with a rifle, and there was a bomb strapped to his chest. "If nobody tells me where that black substance is, I'm blowing this place to hell!" He then turned to Peter and noticed the black suit. "Is this your new outfit? Wait, you have it!" He grabbed an Oscorp employee and aimed the rifle at his head. "You either give up the substance or this guy gets it." Peter was greatly annoyed and shot a web at the rifle, yanking it out of the bomber's hand. The bomber dropped his hostage and approached Spider-Man. He then pressed a button which set off a timer on the bomb. "No one's getting out of here alive!" he screamed. This enraged Peter, and he lunged forward, pouncing on the bomber. He grabbed the bomber and ripped it apart before he threw it aside. The man was surprised and was about to say something when Spider-Man grabbed him and started to beat him over and over. Innocent people. You could have hurt these innocent people, Peter screamed. The bystanders looked on in horror as Spider-Man beat this man until he started to bleed. Peter's mind was blank. All he thought about in that moment was the death of Gwen. Everyone slandering him for murdering the person who'd taken away his girlfriend, and finally Harry and MJ's supposed betrayal. When he was done, the bomber was nothing but a bloody and bruised mess. Peter saw what he'd done and looked at his hands, which were now stained with blood. Then, to the bystanders' horror, he started to laugh. Everything Peter had been feeling came out then, and to him it felt satisfying. He started to laugh and cry all at the same time. He had finally snapped. Peter Parker felt free. He no longer felt burdened by responsibility. He now had his new purpose, to rid the world of its scum and those who had done him wrong. The next morning, the Daily Bugle had a field day. Everyone read the newspapers that Spider-Man had murdered a New York civilian. Even if they had intended to harm everyone, New York civilians were mixed about the whole thing. But none could forget Spider-Man's laughter as he was covered in the bomber's blood. Peter went into the Daily Bugle that morning to find that J. Jonah Jameson was bragging about how he'd been right all along. This made Peter's blood boil with rage. So, the wall-crawler menace finally shows its true colors, Jameson proclaimed. This will make the headline for sure. He then called over to Peter, who promptly did as he was told. Parker, I need you to take pictures of Spider-Man in his new costume. Catch him in the act, he commanded. Then he read out his potential headline. Spider-Man turned to the dark side. Peter snarled and he spoke up. You know, JJ, I've had quite enough of your bullshit. Jameson was taken aback at Peter's backtalk. Parker, what is the meaning of this? He demanded. Peter continued. For years you've slandered Spider-Man. Well, it ends now. Peter grabbed Jameson by the shirt and lifted him from the ground. Jameson looked at his employee in fear, but Peter only smirked and said coldly, Goodbye, Jonah. He then approached and tossed Jameson out of the glass window, breaking glass in the process. Peter watched as Jameson fell to the ground and screamed in horror, looking at his employee with utter betrayal before crashing to the ground. Everyone gasped, and Peter turned around and saw all the horrified looks of the Daily Bugle employees, including Becky Braun and Robbie Robertson. Peter looked at his hands and shook in horror before he ran out of the Daily Bugle building. That evening, Peter sat on his bed and thought. He knew what he did was horrible, but the power felt so good. He knew he needed more. Then Peter thought about Harry and MJ. He had to make Harry feel the pain he went through after losing Gwen. They betrayed me. Now it's time for payback, he thought out loud. He commanded the Spider-Man snoots to consume him before he flung off towards MJ's house. Mary Jane was sitting on the sofa with a cup of tea. She thought about Peter and wanted to give him a call. She got out her phone and was about to dial his number when she heard a bump coming from upstairs. This worried her, and she went to go and check it out. MJ went up the stairs, only to see a shadow in the hallway. "Who are you?" she asked fearfully. MJ felt a horrible chill go down her spine. Then the person came out of the shadows, and she saw that it was Peter. "Peter, it's late. What are you doing here?" MJ asked, concerned. Peter smirked and said, with a false casual tone, "I just wanted to see you. I barely see you guys anymore. Could I get a drink?" MJ didn't know what to say. She'd read the newspapers, but reckoned it was another imposter trying to frame Spider-Man. Sure," she concluded. MJ went down the stairs, and Peter followed. When MJ was in the kitchen, she called after Peter, "What drink do you want?" There was no answer, so MJ turned around, only to see the black-suited Spider-Man. She gasped, but Peter grabbed her and shushed her. "Shh, shh, shh. We're going to have a little fun. You, me, and Harry, just like old times," he muttered. Peter knocked out MJ by bashing her head against the wall and tied her up with his webbing, which was now black like the rest of his suit. Sometime later, Harry was driving to his place and thought. He knew Spider-Man had killed his father, but never thought he'd strike again. He was extra worried about Peter's safety, when suddenly he got a call. It was MJ. He responded to the call. "Hey MJ, what's up?" he asked, when suddenly he heard her crying over the phone. "MJ, are you okay?" Harry asked tentatively, when suddenly he heard a voice on the other end which sounded familiar, but it was deep and raspy. "That's good, Osborne. Come and save your girl." "What? Who is this?" Harry demanded. The voice chuckled and said coldly, "Come over to MJ's house and find out." Then the caller hung up. Harry slammed the phone down and furiously swerved the car around to MJ's place. When Harry got to the house of Mary Jane, he dialed 911 and told them that his girlfriend was in danger. He got out of the car with a gun that he carried with him in case of an attack, and he approached the house. He slowly entered and heard muffled sobbing coming from the kitchen area. He crept towards the kitchen with a gun aimed directly forward when he saw MJ tied and gagged, tears pouring down her face, and standing over her was Spider-Man. "MJ, don't worry, I'm here," Harry exclaimed. He then looked at Spider-Man, who then demanded calmly, "Drop the gun." Harry nodded and did as he was told. "Okay, just don't hurt her," he pleaded. Peter smirked behind the mask and punched MJ, which caused her to cry out. This infuriated Harry and he lunged forward to attack the webhead, but Peter dodged the attack and punched Harry in the stomach, causing him to groan and kneel down. I wouldn't do that again, Peter told his former friend. Harry looked up at his crying girlfriend and then up at Spider-Man. What do you want? He demanded. Peter smirked, and the mask dispersed to reveal his face. Harry looked at his friend in horror. Pete, you're... he started, but was cut off by Peter coldly shouting, I want revenge! You two abandoned me in my time of need, living in your fairy tale fantasy, while I lost someone who meant the world to me. Harry didn't know what to think. His best friend had taken all of those lives. Look, Pete, we didn't mean to hurt you, Harry protested. We just knew you needed your space. He then looked at MJ and pleaded with Peter. Please, let her go. For a moment, Peter felt a bit of guilt for what he was doing, but that guilt was replaced with malice. Look at her face, Harry Osborn. Tell her it's gonna be okay. Harry pleaded once again for his friend to let his girlfriend go, but Peter shouted, Say it! And Harry did as he was told. It's going to be okay, MJ. We're going to get through this. I love you so much. Peter observed this and muttered, Fuck. This is getting too snappy. He then grabbed the writhing MJ, who was screaming. Harry screamed after her, but Peter raised his hand, his fingers elongated into claws. And to Harry's horror, Peter plunged his newfound clawed hand into MJ's stomach and cut it open as she screamed out in pain. Harry watched in horror as Peter ripped out her intestines before dropping her corpse. Harry cried and grabbed his now deceased girlfriend and held her as he cried. He looked up at Peter and asked, Why would you? Peter smirked and said in a raspy voice, I found a purpose. Tears poured down Harry's face as he looked down at the dead Mary Jane and screamed, We were your friends, goddammit! Peter smirked and replied with, That's right, were. Suddenly, Peter heard police sirens, and he swore to himself before swinging out of the house. Harry cried as he held his deceased girlfriend in his arms. Then the SWAT team of police officers barged into the kitchen and were horrified at the scene. Captain Stacy pushed through the crowd and gasped at what he saw. He saw the black webbing which was still around MJ's waist and mouth, and all he could say was, Oh my God. And Harry Osborn sobbed. Mary Jane's body was carried away on a gurney while Captain Stacy was talking to some officers. Harry was sat in the corner with a blanket wrapped around him. He couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Then he heard the captain's voice say, Are you okay, son? Harry sniffed and looked up at the man. What do you think? His tone was watery as he tried not to cry. Captain Stacy sat next to the young Osborn and said tentatively, Look, we're going to catch him, alright? Spider-Man has shown his true colors. I didn't think he'd do something like this, but we're going to catch that motherfucker. Understand? Harry nodded and sniffed before saying, Yeah, I understand, Captain. The past couple of days were a chore to get through. The funeral had been a big one. Harry Osborn was scarred and didn't go out for the past week. He was forever haunted by the events of that night. He had horrible night terrors of MJ blaming him for not saving her, and Peter laughing cruelly at his suffering. One day, he was sat on the sofa and thought his best friend had murdered the woman he loved, and he was going to pay. Filled with rage, Harry grabbed his empty cup and flung it at the mirror. It shattered, and all of a sudden, Harry could see a storage room full of equipment. Harry got up and approached the mysterious room. He stepped inside and saw loads of blades, pumpkin bombs, a glider, and a green and purple armored suit along with a green and purple mask. Harry backed away when he realized that his father had been the Green Goblin. Then another thought occurred to him. Spider-Man isn't any better. Two people I trusted most are murderers. It's time for them to meet in hell. Harry suited up and placed the mask over his head. He got on top of the glider, and suddenly his feet were strapped down and the glider activated. It hovered in the air for a moment. And realizing what was going on, Harry moved his body forward, which caused the glider to move. It burst through the wall of the house and soared through the air. With a thirst for vengeance, Harry Osborn was on the hunt for his former best friend. Peter sat on the roof of his apartment building, not knowing what his next move was. He stood up from the roof and was about to swing off when suddenly his spider sense alerted him of danger. He looked behind him and saw Harry Osborn charging towards him. Peter just dodged and leapt onto the glider, which was now flying through the sky. "What now?" Peter sneered. "You got the girl and I got revenge, so I think we're even." Harry furiously punched Peter and the glider soared downwards. They each threw punches until they both fell to the ground along with the glider. The two of them got on their feet and stared at each other. "You Osborns ruined everything for me!" Peter screamed. Harry pulled out a few pumpkin bombs and threw them at Peter, who dodged them instantly. Peter smirked and lunged towards Harry. Suddenly, a police car roared in between them, which caused Peter to crash into the side. Captain Stacey got out of the police vehicle and approached Harry. "Are you okay?" he asked. Harry nodded, and the pair smiled at each other. Then suddenly, there was a stabbing sound, and the captain Stacey gagged. Harry could see utter shock on the captain's face. He coughed up blood and collapsed. Harry stared in horror as Peter retracted his clawed hand. "You really shouldn't get in my way," he sneered. Harry screamed and lunged towards his former friend. The two blades protruded from his armored sleeves, and he made slashing motions at Peter, who dodged them and kicked his former friend in the stomach. Harry fell to the ground, and Peter grabbed the goblin glider before breaking it in half and throwing it onto the ground. He then whipped out two blades from the front of the glider and clinked them together. However, this made the symbiote react and spasm as it roared and Peter dropped the two blades. Harry noticed that Peter was distracted and ran over to where the two blades were. He grabbed them, and Peter saw this and was about to grab them off him, but Harry clinked them together, making Peter scream like a demonic banshee and back away. He then grabbed the police car and lifted it above his head before throwing it at Harry. Harry quickly dodged and clinked the two blades together, which made Peter writhe around in pain. Harry then whacked them together until the symbiote ripped itself away from Peter. Harry looked at the black symbiotic mass in horror, but then he heard a voice say, "Harry? What happened?" Harry looked down to see Peter, who seemed genuinely dazed and confused. Harry was angry and shouted at Peter, listing all of the things that he'd done, all the lives he took. "You took the hope of New York away! You took my hope away!" he screamed. And it finally dawned on Peter. He felt horrible for what he'd done. He murdered all of those innocent people. Then he turned to his former friend and said family, "Give me one of your pumpkin bombs. I'm gonna destroy that thing." Harry was hesitant at first, but eventually relented. Peter took the bomb and pressed the button that would set it off. He then ran towards the symbiote, to Harry's confusion. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Peter turned back and shouted, "I'm gonna fix this mess," before he turned back to the direction of the symbiote and threw the bomb into it. "New York doesn't deserve me as its hero," he thought to himself, and he dived towards the symbiote which consumed him. Harry ran towards Peter, but before he could do anything, the bomb exploded, obliterating both Peter and the symbiote in the process. Harry was in shock. It seemed like he'd just got his best friend back, before losing him again. His throat tightened, and he let out a long, pained scream. Then Harry noticed Captain Stacy, who was bleeding out. "Captain!" he shouted, while rushing over to the police captain's body. He scooped the body up in his arms and cried quietly. He couldn't save his father, his girlfriend, now not even his best friend, or the police captain. He stood up and carried the body of Captain Stacy away from the wreckage and towards an ambulance. The funeral was big for Captain Stacy, and all of the lives that Spider-Man took. Everyone was hurt and confused, and at how and why their long-standing hero had turned against them. For the past couple of days, weeks even, Harry was depressed and angry, but he finally came to terms with what had happened and decided to move away from New York City. He just needed to go somewhere and stay under the radar. He cut ties with Oscorp, and his butler bid him farewell and gave his young master enough money to start a new life somewhere else. Harry would never forget Mary Jane or Peter Parker, even after everything that happened. He would always remember the good times they shared.